Hey there, you nines. This is exercise 9D to do with box plots. And we're going to look at specifically the 5 number summary. And we're also going to look at some outliers as well, which we'll have to calculate lower and upper fences. So let's start off with using our CAS as well, just so that we have a general idea. I'm going to do just the first one, just to list out the idea of what you need to do. So here's a set of data, all mumbled jumbled. So normally you need to write them in ascending order so that we know what the smallest and largest is. But with the CAS calculator, we don't actually have to. So I'm just going to start from the beginning, going to our calculator and go to list and spreadsheet. So this one. So I'm going to list out the data that I have. I've got 465. So 465. What's the other one? 2, 3, 4, 4, 13. 2, 3, 4, 4, 13, 8, 7, 6, 8, 7, 6. Okay, now I'm going to call this column A. I'm just going to change that and call it data. So now I've entered my data and I'm going to go to Control Doc to add a page. And I'm going to add on data and statistics, number 5. Here's the number of data that I've put in. Now to rank it in order, you can just simply click on the x-axis and select the column, which I call data. And you can see here now they put it in order for me. So I can see that the smallest number is 2, largest number is 13, and etc. So there's a potential that 13 could be an outlier. So let's see if I go to menu, plot type, and I go to box plot. Let's see if it is an outlier. Okay, so let's see how we would have calculated this by hand. Okay, so we can see that the maximum, which is 8 now, and we can see the minimum is 2, Q1 is 4, Q2, which is the median, is 5, and Q3 is 7, and the outlier is 13. Well, let's do this by hand, and let's see where or how they got 13 as the data. So let's do it by hand. We're going to write down, what's going on with my pen? Give me a second. All right, should work now. Let's put it all in order. So the smallest number I can see is a 2. Then we've got 3 4s. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've done 2, 3, 4, 4, 4. 5 and 2 6s. So 5 and then 2 6. Okay, so 5, 2 6s, and a 7. Then I've got an 8 and a 13. All right, so I've listed my data in order, and let's see how many data we have. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We've got 11 data, so the middle is nice because if it's odd number, then there must be a middle, and the middle is often the center or half of 11, which is 5.5, and you can see here I've got 5 data over here, and I've got 5 over here, so the center must be the 6th position, which is number 5. Okay, so this must be my Q2. This is my Q0, which is the minimum. And this is my Q4, which is my maximum. And since this draws a line as the center, then this is the bottom half of the data. And so the middle of the bottom half is now 4, because that's the middle of those 5 digits there. So that's Q1. And then we can see that's Q3. Okay. And so that means interquartile range, which is from the 75th percentile, so the middle of the upper half minus the middle of the lower half. And so we get Q3 minus Q1, and that gives you 7, take away 4. So my interquartile range is 3. So that means, if I have to visualize it, that 50% of the data, because 25th percentile to 75% of 75th percentile, that's 50% there. 50% of the data sits between 4 and 7, which is 3 units. Okay, so that's interquartile range. That's what it represents. And we can calculate those 5-number summary just from the CAS calculator without doing it by hand as well. I could have gone here, select anywhere on the cell, press menu, go to statistics, stat calculations, and because we only got one set of data, so we're going to go variable stats, one variable stat, and it's only got one list, so press OK. Where am I going to get my data from? I'm going to get it from data, and you do that just by double clicking on it. You get data, and then click OK. And so you can see my 5-number summary says I've got 11 numbers, which we knew before. Minimum is 2, 4, 5, 7, and 13. That tells us the 5-number summary, which is what we have. We have 2, 4, 5, 7, and 13, just the same. Okay. Now, inner quartile range, we've calculated as 3. And so how do you work out if something's an outlier or not? Well, you need a lower fence and an upper fence, because we need to know, well, how far is it too far, right? Where do you draw the line? And we draw the line for the lower fence by calculating Q1, because that's currently the middle of the lower half, right? So you're the middle person in the bottom bracket. So in the bottom bracket of data, you're the middle person. So we're saying, okay, since IQR is 3, so 50% of the data sits between this range, right? We say, okay, well, what if you went that amount and more in that direction? Okay, so that's why we say Q1 minus is like, well, how much more do we go? Do we go 100% more of the current data? Because the current data has 3 units, right? Do you do 3 units down, or do you do more than that? And so we decide that the standard is we do 150% of the IQR, meaning from this person, whoever sits at the 25th percentile, I'm going to go 150% in the negative direction. Okay, I'm going to go worse than that. And if you're still further than that away, okay, you are now way too far behind, because if the general population, 50% of the data sits at 3 units, right? That's the distance for 50% of the data. I'm already going 3 units this way and more. And you're still further than that. That means you're way below what the expectation is. And then same thing if you go on the upper end, you're now way too far ahead from where the general population is. Okay, so we're using the IQR as the measure of the general population, which is from Q1 to Q3. And we're just saying, well, what if I went down this way by 150% of IQR? And then same thing, 150% in the other direction. And so we call that lower fence and upper fence. So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is to find your lower fence, it's Q1 minus 1.5 times IQR. And the upper fence is calculated by finding Q3 plus, because you're going in this direction, right, by 1.5 times IQR. And since we know that IQR is 3, so we can calculate this now. Q1, so the middle of the lower half data, so Q1, 25th percentile is 4. So you're in the middle of the bottom half, and you're now saying, let's minus 150% of the general population. General population was units of 3. So I'm going to go further than that, okay, and see how far I can go. So 4, take away 1.5 times 3. I'm just going to do it all in the counts, actually. That's 4, take away 1.5 times 3, gets negative 0.5. Okay, so I get negative 0.5. So that is my barrier, my lower bound. So if I had a data that was all the way down here at negative 0.5, that is my lower boundary. You have to be more than that in order to be an outlier. So that's my lower fence. And then the upper fence is the other way around. So it's Q3, which is 7, plus 1.5 times IQR, which is 3. So we do the same thing, 7 plus 1.5 times 3, and that gives me 11.5. So that's saying that any data that is now above this upper fence, the lower fence was here. Okay, so lower fence, upper fence. Anyone who's passing this now, I'm essentially saying that take the upper half, which is 7, and I'm adding on an extra 150% of the distance between Q1 and Q3, which is essentially 50% of the data. So 150% of IQR, that gave me 11.5. This is why someone scoring 13 is not already just better than the general population, which was a distance of 3 units, right? So Q1 to Q3. Even if I did another 3 units So this was 70. If I did another 3 units, it's only 10. The fact that you're scoring 13, you are now more than double what the population generally is. And that's why, not more than double, you're more than 100% of itself. So hence, that's at 11.5, you are currently 150% of the general population. That's why 13 is considered an outlier. But that's how you calculate your upper and lower fence and determine if you have an outlier or not. And if you have an outlier, then this data now gets excluded, and therefore 8 becomes the new maximum. Okay, and that's why you can see in the data plot why 8 is the new maximum and then 13 is separate. Usually we use a cross to represent that this is an outlier, and then we use a dot for 8 and 2 as the minimum. We use vertical lines for Q1, Q2 or median, and Q3. Okay, hopefully that gives you a quick summary of the skills that you need to be able to do. So you have to be able to do it by hand, but you also need to be able to do it on a CAS so that you can shrink down the calculation time. Okay.